blockchain as a foundational technology has been revolutionary. From the early days of Bitcoin and Ethereum that we have heard about, to the fast-paced world of gaming, our next panel will explore how the protocols are evolving to meet the needs of gamers and game developers. And that is why up next is another panel discussion to talk about game development in the Web3 space. Leading the discussion is Chris Cerise of Saison Capital, together with Rio Matsubara of Oasis and Matt Sorg of Solana.
Okay, hi everyone. Maybe we can start off with a round of introductions first. Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Paul Kim. I'm the CEO for Xpla slash C2X. We're a gaming-focused layer one developed by Come2Us, which is one of the largest gaming companies in Korea. Happy to be here.
I'm Matt Sorg. I'm head of engineering for Solana Foundation, which is kind of a general purpose next-gen blockchain that does tons of transactions per day at low cost, kind of doing the optimization layer while still remaining decentralized. I have a long history in gaming. I worked for Riot Games and I worked for Unity and a couple others.
Hi, this is Rio Matsubara. I'm represented by the director of Oasis, our gaming-focused blockchain, are incubated by the first blockchain game publisher, Minecraft Heroes team, and also are supported by gaming giant like Sega, Square Enix, or Bandai Namco. Yeah, that's what we are doing.
Cool, thanks. Maybe quick intro on myself. So I'm Chris from Saison Capital. I'm the founding partner there. So we are early stage hybrid fund. We invest in both Web2 and Web3. I'm also an advisor for LiquidX, which is a venture building studio. We are best known for acquisition of Pixelmon, a GameFi company, as well as a few content NFT projects. So maybe we can get started. It's a panel on Web3 development, but we, I guess, have to address the elephant in the room as well. So it's been a big week for crypto. We've had a few Black Swan events, with the closest one being just last week. We've also I guess all along had some sort of skepticism from the general gaming community about Web3 games in general. How have you guys seen all these macro events affecting the general climate and sentiments around Web3 gaming? And also because we're here, I believe we all have reasons to be bullish about it. So maybe share about your thoughts about where Web3 gaming will go from here and what your bull case scenario is for it. Rio, maybe we can start with you.
Okay, for Oasis, as we haven't launched the token yet, so for token launch timing, we are really, really sensitive because market condition has become a little bit awful. But about the gaming launch, so we are so bullish because we have strong contents with a strong backer. So there's no big inference, a bad inference about it. Actually, yeah. So the era of the fake, the high market value has finished. So it's timing for building real products. So we are believing.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. I think right now the market is around speculation, like who can kind of guess the right price of individual tokens or things like that. That's obviously will go away over time as you get just adoption and there's just natural buy-in, buy-out. And that's just going to come with great apps, great consumer apps. And I don't think it really matters the perception in the short term around certain things. Like consumers are just going to go where fun things are and where utility is. So if blockchain enhances that in some ways, and like that's really what everybody should be concentrating on. Is my product made better by this integration? And am I able to provide a better user experience, or those kinds of questions? Yeah, I think there is a risk to like regulatory things, just like the way this affected just kind of normal people. This wasn't like some yield, like this wasn't normal. Like, because most of them just collapsed because of some yield that was unsustainable. This was, like something that feigned an appearance of a bank. It was just KYC. People were going in there without being greedy. They were just kind of holding funds there. So there's definitely a risk of what backlash will happen from that. But in terms of like creating user experiences, that's, entirely unaffected, I think.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, the current macros, I don't think really affects the Web3 gaming as much as it is doing for the DeFi projects out there. And I do feel bad for those guys right now. But with regards to Web3 gaming, I don't know, from my standpoint, we're still focused on building. We've just begun to venture into the Web3 space, transitioning Web2 games into Web3. And we still have, multiple, like 10 to 20 games that we're going to be launching every year on the platform. So we're focused on what we're doing and not so much about the macros. And obviously, we do have some token holders that's on FTX that's stuck. And as a foundation, we're exploring all the options possible so that we can potentially return the tokens back to the token holders. So it is affecting us somewhat, but we're still more focused on the building.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think one of the things we hear often about Web3 gaming as a space is that there are a lot of undercurrents of really good teams building in the space now. We just don't see the games produced yet because it takes a long time to build games, right? Maybe since you guys have a unique vantage point, you can talk a bit about some of the really exciting projects or teams that you've been working with. Maybe Paul, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so Expla is, we're trying to build a content-based blockchain. By content, what we mean is games and entertainment, IPs. Come to us, we have 40 different companies under our portfolio that's, all focused towards game creation and entertainment content creation. So our focus is to bring those, we're sitting on billions of dollars of content and IP, so we're trying to bring those onto our chain and bring into the Web3 space. Now, the projects that we're really excited about right now is we announced a partnership with Exterio, which is the Web3 arm for FunPlus, which is another large Web2 studio. And we have several partners like that in line that we'll be announcing pretty soon. And we're just excited to see what type of Web3 gaming experience that they're going to be creating on the chain, as well as content providers such as HyperComics, which is a webtoon platform that's really geared towards giving back the royalties back to the authors of comics. And we're very excited about the development of content on the blockchain right now.
Matt?
Yeah. Good games definitely take a long time to make. I was actually at Riot when we first started making Valorant. So Riot made League of Legends, if anybody doesn't know. I was there, and I think it took 7.5 years to ship Valorant. It takes a really long time. And Valorant's a pretty, relatively simple session-based game with, I think we released with 4 maps and 8 champions or something like that. It wasn't, if you just look on the surface, it wasn't that much individual pieces of content. But in order to make a game fun and iterate, you have to throw a lot of things away, and iterate and go back and forth. So it just takes a long time. And blockchain really has only gotten, blockchain games have really only gotten popular since Axie kind of showed people that there's interest, and that was only about a year and a half ago. It's just not that much time for other people to really enter the space. So there's nothing inherent about blockchain games that make them bad or anything. It's just, it's a time. And I guess, so our focus in that is really about facilitating economies. So, being a general purpose blockchain, there's going to be DeFi, there's going to be other, consumer apps, there's going to be IP, there's going to be so many different things. And I think the other thing that is a little bit unique is Solana, there's this concept of composability, where if there's functionality from one place, it can actually be used in another very seamlessly on Solana, just the way that the architecture works. So think about it, there's a lot of talk about composability between games, like what does this sword mean in this other game? That's a really hard, weird problem to solve. But if you have shared understanding of what an NFT is, maybe the functionality that one game is using around that NFT can also be used on top of another game. And so that's the type of interoperability that we're really excited about, and that can get really, really interesting. We're already seeing it today, and I think that's kind of what we're thinking about, because that's kind of unique to Solana with how much it scales to all these experiences all in one place, where you can really get people working together to create really, really fun experiences.
Okay, so at last winter, crypto winter, we published the first blockchain game. Remember 2018? They recorded the world #1 DAU and sales from Japan. Then this winter, so fortunately, actually, we are Japanese-born blockchain project. So 19% of the public listed gaming company is preparing for blockchain game release right now. So we are so bullish about the real products is coming in crypto winter. Yes, so now we are preparing for that. So, and then, especially, so Japan is really, it's like a gaming kingdom. So lots of IP, so we have a lot of treasure. So so we are really actually exciting to deliver the real products to the crypto world, from next year.
Yeah, maybe from your perspective of being in Japan and seeing a lot of adoption on the blockchain side from very experienced and large-scale gaming companies that previously were not Web3 native. Do you think there will be bottlenecks in the industry when it comes to infrastructure? So, of course, you guys are working on good L1s that can help these games scale, but other things like payments, analytics, for example.
Yes. There's three biggest challenges for blockchain game. One is the speed. Second one is the gas fee. The third one is a bad UX. For speed and the gas fee, we are trying to solve. We have a zero gas fee model for users, and also instant transaction utilizing the layer 2 model, a double structure. Then also for the bad UX, we are trying to solve that with the ecosystem. So building the good wallet, the partnering with the payment, the company. So. Yeah, sorry. So these 3 points is really important for mainstream adoptions. For next
Okay,
model.
got it. And maybe Matt, from your perspective of having worked in a Web2 game company before, probably one of the best known Web2 gaming companies in the space. What do you think are some of the hurdles to large companies entering the space? I think we have seen a lot of that happening in Japan, but not so much in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, and part of the reason why I'm here is I agree. I think there's other regions. Oops, momentum of my water. I think there's other regions that are just really thinking about it much more deeply than like America, quite frankly. There's some startups that are definitely genuinely thinking about it, but not like the quality of like big companies that are really thinking about where the business models are going. It's like a kind of a testament to the forward thinking, like in Korea and the kind of these other places as well. That's why I'm here as opposed to in America. I think the barriers. I mean, I think he said it pretty well. I mean, I think Solana kind of optimizes for that in a lot of ways. We can get into the technicals, but it's like really provides a Web2 experience kind of natively the way that the architecture works. And so you have this really fast throughput. everything gets, like the total turnaround time of a transaction from the time the player presses a button to the everything gets confirmed on chain very, very confidently is less than 2 seconds often. So it's just a fantastic user experience, and that's why a lot of things are, like a lot of consumer adoption is happening on Solana. I think Solana has, you know, more transactions per day than all the public blockchains combined. So that's kind of what we're kind of excited, taking that base and then providing good facilitating good user experiences on top of it. And I think I don't think there's any one thing. I think that's actually the kind of the point of Solana. It's an entire ecosystem of people who are independently trying to solve the problem. And there's going to be a bunch of people who are trying to figure out, like, what is the right user flow? Is it a lazy mint? Is it a like smooth on-ramp at the beginning? Is it, you know, like, what is that optimal configuration of Web 2 to Web 3 along that sliding scale? And so there's going to be just multiple, shots on goal, and I think it's going to be kind of an exciting time to see what really sticks with consumers.
And also coming from a traditional gaming company that has had a large scale, and kind of comparing that against the last wave of Web3 gaming, where we saw a lot of adoption in Southeast Asia and here in the Philippines specifically. Do you think the next wave of Web3 gaming will see a similar distribution player base wise, or?
Sorry, I think I may have missed your point. One thing I want to make clear, Riot did not ship as a AAA game. Riot was very much like a single A, scrappy studio, just making a really, really fun experience. But they had a new business model. So I think what they did relative to, so Dota was free to play, was a mod though, so they didn't have a lot of the systems in place for a lot of the social experiences and things. Then you had Han, and a couple others that had gated experiences. Heroes of New Earth. Sorry, I'm speaking too much jargon. But what League really unlocked is like this first-class experience that also was free to play, so you could have this social experience on top and like this really easy entry, and you could create this really competitive environment. But it was because of this new business model at the time of free to play that really facilitated this flywheel of more and more players coming on, and you had this social pressure about who was good, and you got this competitive environment. So there's the opportunity to do that. What is that flywheel for blockchain? That's what the shots on goal are going to try to find. We've seen some glimmers of it where people are like, oh, okay, if you can. I would actually say the magic of Axie was that things like YGG could come out of it, and they could kind of permissionlessly arrange themselves. We're still working out the exact tokenomics and everything, the way things mix out, but that's a fantastic thing. There's entire businesses being formed on top of a game, and that's a fantastic. Once that happens, engines can start being formed. Just similar to the way that you saw like content creation on YouTube. Once people started getting paid for Twitch and YouTube content, how much better did that whole ecosystem evolve? And so I think that's where, when you're talking about the next wave, like what is that? What were we discovering?
Got it. Maybe question for you, Paul. So having been in the space for a while, do you see more and more traditional companies coming into the Web3 gaming space as well? And from your end, do you think there's anything that we as a Web3 native community can sort of help to onboard them?
Yes, definitely. So a lot of the traditional Web2 gaming companies in Korea are considering Web3 right now, that I know. And for us, we've just jumped into the fire. We've committed. So we've pivoted 100 degrees from Web2 to Web3. So all of the titles that's going to be launched going forward will be Web3. But I think the important thing for these traditional Web2 gaming companies is the preservation of their current Web2 business. A lot of these companies, including ours, we're a publicly listed company. We need to be responsible about our P&L and our financials. But the key here is how do we maintain the Web2 business and at the same time add that Web3 layer on top of that. And the way we're going about it is, so all of the games that we develop, which have been in development for the past 4 to 5 years, at least, they were designed as a Web2 game first. So they're designed to be on Apple App Store, Google Play Store. So all of the games will be launched there as free to play. But with our SDK, you're able to add on that Web3 layer on top of the existing games. So we don't have to rebuild the games. It's just an integration with an SDK. And that just enables a smoother transition, or smoother user experience for the traditional Web2 players to get into Web3. It's just one link to a wallet away from accessing the Web3 features. So the preservation of the Web2 business is super important for the traditional companies. And you could look at it as a Web 5.0 approach where you have the Web2 game side as well as the Web3 side, and I think that's going to be key for a lot of the traditional companies.
And maybe playing the devil's advocate, so are there certain types of Web2 games that should not be on-chain?
Should not be on-chain. I don't know. Do you?
I mean, I don't think every game needs everything on game. Like if I'm playing Sudoku, like maybe I want my achievement on chain or something. But like it's a single player experience. There's no like asset generation. There's no, like maybe I could put the gameplay on chain. I mean, there's nothing that like, whenever you put something on chain, it's like the way I think about it is like, what is somebody else doing with that? Like as a marketplace, it's like a marketplace gets formed and you can have somebody else buy permissionlessly and you can kind of have this commerce that happens. So that makes sense to me. So that's usually with multiplayer experiences where people are kind of trading back and forth. But, and so maybe some games can make use of that are single player. But I think in general, think of that lens. What is being enhanced? What are other people, because you're sharing data when you go on a blockchain. Like what does that give me?
I think for Korean, MMORPG, so maybe the integrating Web2 games and NFTs works because, are traditionally, so on the backside, RMT has really been popular for, the MMORPG. Maybe the NFT makes that really, the fabric. So that model works, I believe, for for Korean MMORPG.
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of things work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you're trying to find like the null set, I think eventually once these things kind of get demystified, there's just going to be some element of blockchain with most things. You're going to have I think most games will have some sort of like attachment to your player identity, whatever that flushes out to be, so I can have like a player history of some sort. Now, exactly what that looks like, I think we're still trying to figure that out as an industry, but I kind of want to be able to display my swag of what I did, even if it's not necessarily a game that has any assets whatsoever. I mean, I think that would be just a really fun experience to have my trophy case.
Yeah, so the current status of P2E games has a bad rap. It is amassing bad rap right now. And I think they were talking about similar things with NFTs. The Web3 gaming industry needs to shift a little bit toward what we call like play-to-own model, where it's more about the ownership of in-game assets rather than the earning component. Although under the definition of play-to-own, earning is inclusive in that, but it's more of the focus towards the ownership, giving back the ownership of the in-game assets back to the players, whereas traditionally in the Web2 space, some games you spend $1 million on the games to level up. But at the end of the day, those items are owned by the game developer, not the players. So it's really shifting that narrative towards ownership of assets and creating some sort of like a collectible perception of the assets.
Okay, thank you so much for the time, guys. I think we are out of time. So just to summarize, I think we are all broadly bullish on Web3 gaming, mainly because of play-to-own, player ownership. As well, we see a lot of large companies entering the space now that previously were not Web3 native. We see a lot of interesting infrastructure as well as teams building the space. So lots to be excited about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris Cerise, Paul Kim, Rio Matsulara, and Matt Sorg.